The gleaming hull of Delta 9 space station dominated the viewport as Nova Reyes gripped the shuttle's steering column. Her pulse quickened at the sight of the massive structure, a spinning wheel of interconnected modules, docking bays, and training facilities that served as the Galactic Alliance's premier pilot certification center. First human pilot, huh? The shuttle operator, a four-armed Ventrosian with scaled skin the color of burnished copper, glanced at Nova skeptically. 32 years since Earth joined, and you're the first to qualify for fleet training. Nova maintained her professional composure despite the familiar undercurrent of doubt in the alien's voice. Yes, sir. It's been a long journey. The shuttle docked with a soft thud, and Nova gathered her single regulation duffel. The station's artificial gravity caught her as she stepped through the airlock, slightly lighter than Earth standard, calibrated for the comfort of multiple species. Report to Commander Thrix for assignment. The Ventrosian called after her. And human? Don't expect special treatment. Nova nodded without turning. She'd heard it all before. The arrival terminal teemed with representatives from dozens of species. The towering, crystalline Luminari, serpentine draconids slithering efficiently through designated tubes, and bulky Pronvians, whose gravitational adaptations made them formidable pilots in extreme conditions. Nova felt eyes of various configurations following her as she made her way to the central assignment hub. Commander Thrix, a Zelthar with reflective compound eyes and mandibles that clicked when she spoke, barely looked up from her console as Nova approached and saluted. Pilot Nova Reyes, Earth designation, reporting for fleet assignment. Commander. The Zelthar's mandibles clicked rapidly, their equivalent of a dismissive snort. Human, right. Paperwork finally cleared after all those appeals? She tapped her screen. You're assigned to Bay 17, CF-17 Pioneer, transport class. Nova's heart sank. Transport class. Not a fighter or scout ship as she'd hoped. Not even close to what she'd trained for back on Earth. Commander, my certification is in tactical response and... Your certification means you meet minimum requirements. Human. Thrix's compound eyes swiveled to lock onto Nova's face. The Alliance has determined your appropriate assignment. Report to Bay 17 for briefing at 0800 station time. Dismissed. Nova held her salute a moment longer than necessary, swallowing the protest that threatened to escape. This wasn't the time. She would prove herself through performance, not complaints. Her quarters were predictably Spartan, a sleeping pod calibrated for human physiology, a sanitation unit, and a small workstation. She stowed her gear methodically, then sat on the edge of the pod, pulling a worn metal wrench from her duffel's inner pocket. The tool was obsolete by centuries, its metal worn smooth from generations of handling. The name Reyes was barely visible, etched into the handle. Made it, Dad, she whispered, running her thumb over the engraving. Not exactly how we planned, but I'm here. Sleep came fitfully that night. Her dreams filled with engines that wouldn't start and aliens laughing from shadowy corners. Bay 17 was located in the station's lower ring, among maintenance and supply sectors. Nova arrived 15 minutes early, expecting to meet her crew for preliminary introductions. Instead, she found the bay empty, save for the ship itself. The CF-17 Pioneer was underwhelming. Its hull bore the scars of decades of service, patched in places with mismatched plating. The craft was bulky, with none of the sleek lines of modern vessels. Its propulsion system visibly outdated. It was a workhorse, reliable, perhaps, but nothing that would turn heads in any spaceport across the galaxy. So they gave the human our oldest transport. Fitting. Nova turned to find two officers observing her from the bay entrance. The taller one, a Pronvion with dense, gravity-adapted musculature and silver-flecked skin, stepped forward. Lieutenant Commander Zarkovis. He introduced himself without offering any gesture of greeting. I oversee support vessel operations. This is Security Officer Mara. The second officer, a Praxian with distinctive ridge-like features and vigilant eyes set wide on her face, merely nodded. I'm Nova Reyes, sir, reporting as Pioneer's pilot. Yes, we're aware. Zarkovis circled the ship, his expression unreadable to human eyes, but his tone unmistakably condescending. The Pioneer is a simple vessel, even with Earth's limited technology. You should be able to manage basic transport runs. Nova bit the inside of her cheek. I've studied all Alliance propulsion systems. Sir, I'm certified on... Theory and practice are different matters. Human. He cut her off. Your assignment is to transport supplies between Delta 9 and the mining outposts in the Cygnus Reach. Routine routes. Nothing that should tax your capabilities. Mara, the Praxian security officer, finally spoke. The vessel's previous pilot achieved the route in 47 standard hours. We'll expect similar efficiency. Nova glanced at the ship again, mentally calculating its likely maximum velocity based on the visible engine configuration. 47 hours across the Cygnus Reach, with this standard drive system. Zarkovis made a sound somewhere between a chuckle and a snort. Perhaps we should lower expectations for the human, shall we say, 60 hours? Before Nova could respond, the bay doors opened again, admitting several more crew members. A Ventrosian communications officer introduced himself as Lieutenant Telix, while two Mukoran engineers barely acknowledged her presence. Last to arrive was a stern-faced Saurian with captain's insignia, Saurian Drav. I see you've met our pilot. Captain Drav's pause before the word pilot held volumes of doubt. I trust Commander Zarkovis has explained your duties. Yes, sir, Nova replied, maintaining her professional demeanor despite the mounting frustration. Good. Pre-flight checks begin now. We depart at 1100 hours. Drav turned to the others. Stations. As the crew dispersed to their duties, Nova approached the entry hatch. A final crew member stood waiting there, a Mukoran with the distinctive cranial ridges of their scientific caste. Unlike the engineers, his expression held curiosity rather than dismissal. You must be Nova Reyes. I'm Dr. Plex, technical advisor. His voice had the melodious quality common to Mukorans, and he offered the traditional greeting gesture of his people. I'll be monitoring the Pioneer systems during your first runs. Nova returned the gesture, relief washing over her at finding someone willing to acknowledge her without immediate judgment. Pleased to meet you, Dr. Plex. Likewise. He lowered his voice. Don't mind the others. New species integration always faces resistance. Took my people 3 decades before we were trusted with anything beyond orbital shuttles. And now Mukorans design half the Alliance's advanced propulsion systems. Nova noted. Plex's facial ridges shifted in what Nova recognized as a smile. Precisely. Persistence pays off. He gestured toward the ship. Shall we begin pre-flight? The Pioneer's cockpit was cramped by modern standards, with manual controls supplementing the neural interface systems common to Alliance vessels. Nova ran her hands over the physical controls with appreciation. On Earth, she'd trained on similar hybrid systems, believing that a pilot should be able to fly even if advanced interfaces failed. You seem comfortable with the manual setup. Plex observed as she familiarized herself with the layout. I prefer having options, Nova replied, activating the diagnostic sequence. Neural interfaces are efficient, but there's something to be said for feeling a ship respond to physical input. The Mukoran made a sound of agreement, a philosophy not commonly shared among younger pilots. Most rely entirely on neural connections now. As the diagnostic completed, Nova frowned at the results. The plasma resonance chamber is showing efficiency at only 62%. That can't be right for a vessel expected to make the Cygnus reach in under 50 hours. Plex leaned closer, examining the readout. The Pioneer has been modified over the years. Some adjustments are not reflected in standard diagnostics. Nova's interest peaked. Modified how? Before Plex could elaborate, Captain Drav entered the cockpit, Lieutenant Telix close behind. Status report? Drav demanded. All systems functional, Captain, Nova reported. Though I'm noting some discrepancies in the propulsion diagnostics that the Pioneer has its quirks, Drav interrupted. Focus on standard operations protocols. This isn't an experimental craft. It's a workhorse with a set routine. Nova nodded, suppressing her questions. Understood, sir. The loading process took another 2 hours as the Pioneer was filled with supply containers bound for mining outposts. Nova used the time to study the ship's specifications in greater detail, focusing particularly on the propulsion system. The official specs didn't match what she was seeing in the diagnostic data. The power output potential was significantly higher than documented. When the crew assembled for departure, Nova had more questions than answers, but she kept them to herself. Time to observe first, theorize later. Departure sequence initiated, she announced, her hands moving confidently over the controls. Despite its age, the Pioneer responded well to her touch, the engines rumbling to life with surprising smoothness. As they cleared Delta 9's docking zone, Captain Drav issued the standard order. Set course for Outpost Sigma 3, standard velocity. Nova complied, but couldn't help asking. Captain, the vessel seems capable of greater acceleration than I'm seeing in the flight parameters. Are we running at reduced power for a specific reason? The cockpit fell silent. Telix, at the communications station, darted a glance between Nova and the captain. Drav's expression hardened. The parameters are set based on thousands of successful runs. Pilot Reyes, the Pioneer is balanced for efficiency, not speed. Follow the established protocols. Yes, sir. Nova engaged the programmed flight path, watching as the stars elongated slightly with their modest acceleration. Over the next several hours, as the Pioneer settled into its journey, Nova studied the ship's systems while maintaining her duties. The standard operations kept her occupied, but not challenged. During a quiet moment, when Captain Drav had retired to his quarters and only Telix remained on the bridge with her, Nova dared to ask the Ventrosian about the ship's history. The Pioneer's been flying this route for 15 years, Telix told her, his forearms working various console functions with practiced ease. But it's older than that. One of the first joint species engineering projects after the Alliance formed. Joint species? Which ones? Saurian and Mukoran primarily, with Pronvian gravitational tech integrated later. Telix glanced at her with slight curiosity. You seem very interested in an old transport vessel. Nova shrugged. Every ship has its stories and its secrets. The Ventrosian scales shifted slightly, their version of raised eyebrows. Seeking secrets on your first assignment might not be the wisest approach. Human. Just trying to understand my vessel, Nova replied casually. For instance, why the plasma resonance chamber shows higher potential output than we're utilizing. Telex's hand stilled momentarily. That's not something the crew discusses openly. So there is something unusual about it. The communications officer hesitated, then sighed. Look, the Pioneer used to be different, experimental. Then there was an incident about 8 years ago. 3 crew members died when a resonance test went wrong. Since then, Captain Drav has insisted on standard operations only. No exceptions, no experiments. Nova absorbed this information, thoughts racing. But the technology itself, the resonance drive, it worked. In theory, in practice. Telex made a gesture equivalent to a shrug. Above my technical understanding, Dr. Plex might know more, but he won't discuss it, especially not with Captain Drav around. The conversation ended as the shift changed. But Nova's mind continued working through the puzzle. The resonance technology sounded familiar, similar to theoretical work her father had published before his death, concepts that had been dismissed by Earth's scientific community as impractical. When her off-duty period arrived, Nova found herself in the ship's small technical library rather than her sleeping quarters. The Pioneer's original technical manuals were still available, though clearly untouched for years. She downloaded the specifications to her personal device, staying up well into her rest period studying the original designs. What she found confirmed her suspicions. The Pioneer had indeed been built with an experimental harmonic drive system, one that utilized plasma resonance patterns to create propulsion efficiencies impossible with standard technology. The principle was remarkably similar to her father's work, though more advanced in implementation. According to the logs, the system had been decommissioned after the accident, but not removed, merely restricted and governed to prevent activation. The physical components still existed within the ship's engine room. Nova's second shift passed uneventfully, but her mind was elsewhere, mentally mapping the modifications she would need to make to safely reactivate the harmonic drive. When Dr. Plex joined her in the cockpit during a quiet stretch, she decided to risk broaching the subject. The Pioneer was an experimental vessel once, she said quietly, ensuring no one else was within earshot. Plex's ridges flattened slightly, a sign of caution. That was some time ago. The harmonic drive system, it's still installed, isn't it? Just deactivated. The Mukoran studied her for a long moment. You've been researching. The technology interests me. My father worked on similar concepts back on Earth. Plex's expression shifted to one of genuine surprise. Did he? I wasn't aware humans had developed resonance theory to that level. They didn't accept his work, Nova admitted. Said it violated too many established principles. He died before he could complete his research. The Mukoran's gaze softened. I'm sorry to hear that. Visionaries often face resistance, regardless of species. He glanced around, then lowered his voice further. The accident that decommissioned the harmonic drive wasn't a failure of the technology itself. It was sabotage. Nova's eyes widened. Sabotage? By whom? Never proven. But certain factions within the Alliance were uncomfortable with the potential such technology represented. If perfected, it would have revolutionized space travel and shifted the balance of power. And now it sits dormant in an old transport ship. Nova mused. Captain Drav was one of the survivors of the incident. He lost close friends. His insistence on standard procedures isn't merely stubbornness, it's trauma. Nova nodded, understanding dawning. I won't disrespect that. But this technology, if it could be safely reactivated, It would need significant modifications to prevent the resonance cascade that caused the disaster. Plex hesitated, then added, "Theoretically speaking, of course." "Of course," Nova agreed, but her mind was already racing with possibilities. Over the next 3 days, as the Pioneer made its scheduled stops at mining outposts throughout the Cygnus Reach, Nova found moments to access the engine room. With each visit, she mapped the dormant resonance systems, comparing them to both the original specifications and her father's theoretical work. The similarities were striking. Either her father had somehow gained access to Alliance technology, impossible given Earth's isolated position at the time, or he had independently developed nearly identical concepts. The latter seemed more likely, and the thought filled Nova with both pride and determination. On the 4th day, during her off-duty hours, Nova made her move. With Telex's reluctant assistance in distracting Security Officer Mara, she gained uninterrupted access to the engine room for 2 precious hours. Working quickly, she adjusted the plasma flow regulators and installed a small device of her own design, created from components she'd quietly requisitioned from various storage compartments. The device, no larger than her palm, contained intricate circuitry built around the metal core of her father's wrench. The metal itself wasn't special, but its resonant frequency, when properly calibrated, could serve as a stabilizing influence on the plasma patterns, theoretically preventing the cascade failure that had caused the previous disaster. She had just finished the installation and closed the access panel when a voice from the doorway froze her in place. Unauthorized access to engine systems is a serious violation of protocol. Pilot Reyes, Captain Drav stood watching her, his expression unreadable but his posture rigid with tension. Nova straightened, meeting his gaze directly. "I was familiarizing myself with the propulsion system, sir. With tools in hand and access panels open?" His tone was dangerously quiet. "Do not insult my intelligence." "Sir, I've reviewed your access logs. You've spent hours studying the decommissioned harmonic drive system." Drav stepped closer, his voice hardening. "That technology is restricted for very good reasons." Nova made a quick decision. Honesty might be her only option. "The harmonic drive wasn't flawed. Captain, it was sabotaged." Drav's expression flickered with surprise before settling back into stern disapproval. "That's a serious accusation." Dr. Plex confirmed it. "The technology itself is sound, revolutionary, even with proper safeguards. It could transform Alliance capabilities. Dr. Plex should not be discussing classified incidents with new crew members." Drav's jaw tightened. 3 people died. Pilot Reyes, 3 of my friends. "I understand, sir, and I respect your caution. But I've made modifications that would prevent a resonance cascade. The system would be stable." "Based on what expertise? You've been a certified pilot for less than a year." Nova hesitated, then decided to reveal the connection. "My father was Alejandro Reyes. He developed similar resonance theory on Earth, independently of Alliance research. His work was dismissed, but he was right. The principles are sound." Drav studied her for a long moment. "Alejandro Reyes. I've heard that name. His theories were reviewed when Earth joined the Alliance. Then you know they align with the Pioneer's harmonic drive concepts." "What I know," Drav said firmly, "is that unauthorized modifications to ship systems are grounds for immediate disciplinary action. Report to my office at 0800 tomorrow. Until then, you are relieved of duty." Nova's heart sank as the captain turned and left. She'd gambled and lost, potentially ending her career before it truly began. Back in her quarters, Nova sat with her father's wrench in her hands, turning it over repeatedly as she contemplated her options. She could deny making any significant changes, claim she was merely studying the systems. But lying would only compound her offense. A soft chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. When it slid open, she was surprised to find Dr. Plex standing there. "May I come in?" the Mukoran asked quietly. Nova nodded, gesturing him inside. "Captain Drav has informed me of your activities," Plex said once the door closed behind him. "I'm sorry if I've caused problems for you." "Doctor." Plex waved away her concern. "What modifications did you make to the resonance system?" Nova blinked, surprised by the direct question. After a moment's hesitation, she explained her adjustments in detail, including the stabilizing device she'd created. The Mukoran listened intently, his expression shifting from skepticism to growing interest. Using personal metal as a harmonic stabilizer, unconventional, but the frequency properties could indeed create the buffer effect you describe. He tilted his head. "Your father's theories must have been remarkably advanced." "They were," Nova said softly, "but no one on Earth would listen. The Alliance has a saying, 'Truth finds its moment.'" Plex's ridges formed a pattern Nova hadn't seen before. "Perhaps this is your father's moment, through you." "Not if I'm discharged tomorrow. Captain Drav is strict, but fair. He—" Plex was interrupted by the sudden wail of the ship's alert system. Nova jumped to her feet as Telex's voice came over the comm. "All crew to stations. Unidentified vessels approaching on intercept course." Despite being officially relieved of duty, Nova raced toward the bridge, Plex close behind. The corridors flashed with emergency lighting as crew members hurried to their positions. When they reached the bridge, Captain Drav was already issuing orders. His earlier confrontation with Nova seemingly forgotten in the face of immediate danger. "Report!" he demanded as Telex worked frantically at his station. 5 vessels, Scarlet Nova configuration. The communications officer replied tensely. "Weapon signatures detected. They're not responding to hails." Nova's blood ran cold. Scarlet Nova, the infamous pirate fleet that preyed on shipping lanes throughout the sector. "Time to intercept?" Drav asked. 17 minutes at their current velocity." Telex responded, "They're faster than we are, Captain." Mara, now at the tactical station, added grimly, "We're outgunned. The Pioneer's defensive capabilities are minimal." Drav turned to Nova, his expression torn between necessity and his earlier anger. "Take your station, pilot. Maximum evasive capabilities." Nova slid into the pilot's seat without hesitation, her hands flying over the controls as she assessed their situation. The pursuing vessels were indeed gaining rapidly. Sleek, predatory craft designed for speed and combat. "Standard evasion patterns won't be sufficient," she reported, already plotting alternatives. "They'll overtake us before we reach the nearest outpost." Drav's expression hardened. "Recommendations, pilot?" Nova hesitated only briefly. "Permission to activate the harmonic drive system, sir." The bridge fell silent. Telex and Mara exchanged glances of shock. "That system is decommissioned for good reason," Drav replied, though with less conviction than before. "It's our only chance." Nova insisted. "With my modifications, it's stable. It could triple our velocity without increasing power consumption." Another alert sounded. "They're charging weapons," Mara announced. "Intercept in 15 minutes." Drav's internal struggle was visible on his face. weighing the certain danger ahead against the risk of Nova's untested modifications. "If you're wrong about the stabilization," he began, "I stake my life on it." Nova replied steadily, "All our lives." After a final moment of hesitation, Drav nodded. "Do it." Nova's fingers flew across the controls, initiating the sequences she'd prepared during her off-duty studies. "Dr. Plex, I need you monitoring the plasma flow rates. Telex, watch for harmonic feedback in the communication systems." Both officers complied without question, the immediate threat overriding any doubts about her authority. "Resonance chamber activating," Nova announced, feeling the subtle vibration through the deck plates. Initial harmonic wave established. On the main display, the pursuing pirates continued to gain ground. 14 minutes to intercept. Secondary resonance patterns engaged. Nova continued, her focus absolute as she guided the ship through the activation sequence. Stabilizing device online. The ship shuddered as energy patterns long dormant began to flow through systems designed for their containment. Warning indicators flashed across Nova's console, but she had anticipated each one, her fingers dancing across the controls to adjust and compensate. "Harmonic convergence in 3, South 2, 1. The Pioneer lurched forward as the resonance patterns synchronized, creating propulsion efficiency that defied standard physics. The stars on the view screen stretched further as their velocity suddenly doubled, then tripled. "It's working!" Telex exclaimed, his four hands working frantically to manage the communication systems under the increased stress. "Pursuing vessels falling behind," Mara reported, unable to keep the amazement from her voice. "They're attempting to match our velocity, but failing." Nova allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction, but kept her focus on the harmonic balance. The resonance pattern required constant adjustment, each minute shift in energy flow demanding compensation to prevent the cascade that had doomed the previous crew. "We've bought time," Drav acknowledged, "but they're still in pursuit. We need a more permanent solution." Nova studied the navigation display, noting their position in the Cygnus Reach. "The Helios Nebula is 17 minutes ahead at current velocity. If we can reach it, the radiation would mask our signature." Drav finished, nodding. "But navigating the particulate fields at this speed would be extremely hazardous." "I can do it," Nova stated with quiet confidence. "The harmonic drive gives us maneuverability as well as speed." Drav studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Proceed, Pilot Reyes." As they approached the nebula's boundary, the pursuing pirates launched a volley of weapons fire. Most shots fell short as the distance between vessels continued to increase. But one struck the Pioneer's aft section. "Minor damage to cargo hold 3, Mara reported. Shields holding at 82%. The nebula loomed ahead, a vast cloud of swirling gas and dust illuminated from within by young, hot stars. To navigate it safely would be challenging under normal circumstances, at their current velocity. It was like threading a needle while riding a rocket, adjusting harmonic frequency to compensate for particulate interference. Nova announced, making minute adjustments to the resonance patterns. Entering nebula in 30 seconds, the bridge crew fell silent as the colorful gases enveloped their vessel. Nova's world narrowed to the readings on her console and the visual cues on the main viewer, her hands making constant small adjustments to their course. Drav watched her work with growing respect. The pirates are still following, but they've slowed significantly. The nebula is affecting their sensors. "We can use that," Nova replied, an idea forming. "If we can create a resonance echo, A what? Telex asked. A false harmonic signature. Nova explained quickly. I can adjust our wake pattern to create multiple energy signatures, phantom ships. In this nebula, their sensors won't be able to distinguish the echoes from our actual position. Do it, Drav ordered without hesitation. Nova's modifications to the resonance system proved even more versatile than she had hoped. By carefully modulating the harmonic patterns, she created distortion waves that propagated through the nebula like ripples in a pond, each one mimicking the energy signature of a vessel in flight. They're splitting up. Mara reported with satisfaction. 3 pursuing the strongest echo, 2 maintaining course toward our actual position. Still too many, Drav noted grimly. Nova studied the nebula composition ahead. There's a hydrogen pocket at coordinates 227 Mark 43. If we can ignite it as we pass, the radiation burst would fry their sensors completely. Plex finished, understanding her plan. But timing would be critical. I can do it, Nova insisted. But I'll need to divert more power to the harmonic drive for a momentary phase shift. Drav's expression tightened at the term phase shift. Clearly, another capability he hadn't known was possible. Explain. A split-second alteration in our resonance frequency. Nova said quickly. It would allow us to pass through the hydrogen pocket without igniting it until we're clear. Then we trigger the detonation behind us. The captain hesitated only briefly. Proceed. Nova adjusted the controls, her concentration absolute as she aligned the harmonic frequencies for the maneuver. Phase shift in 3, 2, 1. The Pioneer seemed to flicker momentarily as its harmonic signature shifted to a frequency that interacted differently with the surrounding matter. They passed through the hydrogen pocket like ghosts, the volatile gas not registering their presence. Clear, Nova announced, immediately reversing the harmonic pattern. Ignition pulse now. A controlled burst of energy from their wake ignited the hydrogen pocket they had just traversed. The resulting explosion blossomed behind them. A miniature star momentarily born and dying in their wake. Direct hit, Mara exclaimed. Both pursuing vessels caught in the blast radius. Their systems are going offline. The bridge erupted in cheers. Even the normally stoic Praxian security officer unable to contain her excitement. Drav raised a hand for silence. Excellent work, but we're not clear yet. The other 3 will realize the deception soon enough. Nova nodded, already plotting their next move. We're approaching the nebula boundary. Once clear, I recommend maximum velocity to Outpost Gamma. Their defense grid will discourage further pursuit. Agreed. Drav turned to Telex. Signal Gamma. Inform them of our situation and request emergency docking clearance. As they cleared the nebula, Nova kept the harmonic drive at peak efficiency. The Pioneer moving faster than any transport vessel had any right to travel. The distance to Outpost Gamma rapidly decreased on their navigation display. The remaining pirates have realized the deception, Mara reported. They've changed course to intercept, but they're still 8 minutes behind us. We'll reach Gamma in 6 minutes at current velocity. Nova responded, her confidence growing with each successful maneuver of the once dormant technology. But their reprieve was short-lived. A warning alarm sounded from Telex's station. New contact, the communications officer called out. Large vessel dropping out of FTL directly ahead. The view screen shifted to show a massive vessel materializing before them, far larger than the pursuit craft. Bristling with weapon emplacements. It's the Dominion. Drav breathed, naming the infamous flagship of the Scarlet Nova pirate fleet. They predicted our course. Nova's mind raced. The massive vessel ahead had enough firepower to obliterate the Pioneer. Harmonic drive or not, Outpost Gamma was still minutes away, and the pursuing craft behind would catch them if they altered course. Options, Drav demanded, his voice tense but controlled. Nova studied the tactical display, noting the Dominion's position relative to Outpost Gamma. A desperate plan formed in her mind. "We go through them," she stated firmly. "Through? They outmass us by a factor of 50, Mara protested. "Not physically through." Nova clarified. "I can create a resonance tunnel, a momentary corridor of altered space-time that will allow us to shift position without conventional movement." Plex's eyes widened. "That's beyond theoretical. It's never been attempted." "My father's final equations predicted it was possible." Nova insisted. "With the harmonic drive at full capacity, we can create a brief connection between 2 points in space." Drav studied her with a mixture of disbelief and desperate hope. "The risk is less than facing the Dominion's weapons." Nova finished. "I need all power diverted to the harmonic drive, everything we've got." After a moment's hesitation, Drav nodded. "Do it." Nova's hands flew across the controls, configuring the harmonic drive for an application its designers had only dreamed might be possible. "Dr. Plex, I need you to monitor the resonance stability. If the pattern starts to cascade, we'll have seconds to abort." The Mukoran moved to the engineering station, his earlier scientific curiosity now replaced with focused determination. "Ready." On the view screen, the Dominion grew larger as they approached, its weapons ports glowing with building energy. "They're locking weapons," Mara announced tensely. "Resonance tunnel initializing." Nova responded, her voice calm despite the hammering of her heart. "I need a precise endpoint. Telex, what are the coordinates for Gamma's main approach vector?" The communications officer relayed the figures, which Nova fed into her calculations. "Harmonic convergence at maximum." She announced, "Tunnel formation in 3, 2, 1. The universe seemed to fold around them. Stars stretched and compressed in impossible ways as space itself responded to the harmonic manipulation. For a heart-stopping moment, warning indicators flashed across every console as the ship's systems struggled to comprehend what was happening to them. Then, with a sensation like passing through an invisible membrane, the Pioneer emerged, directly in front of Outpost Gamma's defense perimeter. "We've done it," Telex exclaimed, checking their position. "We're at Gamma's approach vector." "Defense grid detecting us," Mara added. "They're activating automatically in response to the pursuing vessels." On the tactical display, the Dominion appeared momentarily confused by their quarry's impossible disappearance. As the massive ship changed course to follow, Gamma's defense batteries came to life, filling the space between with deterrent fire. "The Dominion is withdrawing," Mara reported with satisfaction. "They won't challenge Gamma's defenses." Relief washed over the bridge. Drav turned to Nova, his earlier anger replaced with grudging respect. "It seems I owe you an apology. Pilot Reyes, your modifications to the harmonic drive saved this ship and crew." Nova nodded in acknowledgement. "Thank you, Captain. Though I suspect there will still be consequences for my unauthorized actions." "There will be a full investigation," Drav confirmed. "But my report will reflect the exceptional circumstances and results." As they docked with Outpost Gamma, the immediate danger passed. But Nova knew that questions remained. The pirates' coordinated attack suggested they had specific knowledge of the Pioneer's route and capabilities, information that shouldn't have been widely available. Her suspicions were confirmed during the subsequent security debriefing. when outpost officers reported capturing one of the damaged pirate vessels. Its captain was none other than former Alliance officer Vex, once assigned to the original Pioneer project before its decommissioning. He was specifically targeting the harmonic drive technology. The security chief explained to Drav and Nova. According to our interrogation, he was the one who sabotaged the system 8 years ago, causing the fatal accident. Drav's expression darkened with shock and anger. Vex, he was my friend. He helped recover the bodies after the incident. A convenient cover for his actions. The security chief replied grimly. He's been selling Alliance technology to the highest bidder for years. The harmonic drive was his most valuable target. He needed it to appear fatally flawed, so he could recreate it for the pirates without suspicion. Nova exchanged glances with Plex, both realizing the implications. That's why he attacked now. She theorized. He somehow learned I had reactivated the system. The security chief nodded. We found monitoring software in your ship's communication array. Once your modifications activated the drive, it alerted his network. The revelation brought a measure of vindication, both for Nova's actions and for the harmonic drive technology itself. When they returned to Delta 9 3 days later, the reception was markedly different from when she had first arrived. Commander Thrix greeted them personally, her mandibles clicking in what Nova now recognized as respect rather than dismissal. The Alliance Science Council has reviewed your modifications to the harmonic drive system. Pilot Reyes. They are impressed. Nova stood at attention, still uncertain of her future despite the successful mission. Thank you, Commander. Captain Drav has recommended you remain assigned to the Pioneer, with the additional mandate to continue development of the harmonic technology under proper supervision. Thrix's compound eyes studied Nova. The Science Council has approved this recommendation, with Dr. Plex assigned as your technical advisor. Relief and pride washed over Nova in equal measure. I'm honored, Commander. Don't be too honored, Thrix added dryly. You're still facing disciplinary action for unauthorized system modifications. Consider your first 3 mission payments forfeited as penalty. Nova suppressed a smile. Understood, Commander. As she left the briefing, Nova found Telix and Mara waiting for her in the corridor. So, the Ventrosian communications officer said with a hint of amusement. It seems we'll be continuing to serve together. Mara, the once skeptical Praxian security officer, nodded in agreement. The Pioneer has been officially redesignated as a development vessel. New name, Harmonic Vanguard. Nova couldn't contain her smile this time. Fitting. Lieutenant Commander Zarkovis sends his regards. Telix added with barely concealed satisfaction. He's particularly impressed with how a human pilot managed to complete the Cygnus Reach route in record time. We make a good team. Nova acknowledged. All of us. In the days that followed. As the Pioneer, now Harmonic Vanguard, underwent official modifications to properly integrate Nova's improvements. She often found herself in the ship's small memorial garden. A plaque honored the 3 crew members lost in the sabotage incident years before. Nova placed her father's worn wrench beside it, then changed her mind and took it back. Not yet, she murmured. Still work to do. Dr. Plex found her there, contemplating the memorial. The Alliance Science Council has authorized a joint species research team, he informed her. Your father's equations will be formally incorporated into the official harmonic drive specifications. His name will be recorded alongside the original developers. Nova blinked back unexpected tears. He would have liked that. Pioneers are rarely appreciated in their time. Plex observed gently, but truth finds its moment. 3 months later, the Harmonic Vanguard departed Delta 9 on its maiden voyage as a research vessel. On the bridge, Nova sat at the pilot station, surrounded by a crew that now included representatives from 7 Alliance species, including 2 other humans who had been fast-tracked through the pilot program following her success. Captain Drav, who had requested to remain in command despite offers of more prestigious assignments, gave the order to depart. "Course, Captain?" Nova asked, her hands poised over the familiar controls. Drav's expression held something she had never seen before: anticipation. "Let's find out what this technology can really do. Pilot Reyes, take us beyond the Cygnus reach." Nova engaged the harmonic drive, feeling the now familiar resonance building throughout the ship. Her father's wrench, now officially integrated into the stabilization system as a Reyes harmonic key, hummed with energy at the heart of the drive. As the stars stretched before them and the Harmonic Vanguard accelerated to velocities once thought impossible, Nova Reyes smiled. The aliens weren't laughing anymore.